So, welcoming to the stage, Ahmed Zeeshan from Aruba and HP Enterprise, and Ankur Agrawal, founder of Inhabitr. Welcome, gentlemen. Please have a seat.
Nicolas. Thank you.
So essentially, back to AI, and I could really speak about this for another 3 hours, but we have limited time. The topic of today, AI and the power of AI for hospitality, specifically in relation to investors and the investment field. I'll start off with Ahmed. So investment in AI technology, it obviously requires significant capital and a strategic vision. So I wanted to ask you, what are the key factors that investors should consider when evaluating AI-driven projects in the hospitality sector?
Okay. Hi, everyone.
Yep.
Hello. Yeah. So in the hospitality sector, when we consider the AI from investor perspective, then because the AI projects or AI solution kind of cost very costly solutions, and also from the operational perspective, it has a very big cost. So they have to understand first that what solution they are acquiring actually fitting their requirement. So first of all, they have to see their infrastructure, that what type of infrastructure they have and what type of solution they want to develop top of it. And one of the strategy we can find in the market that either they go all the way to the cloud base or they can use the hybrid model. So if you see the data perspective, then there is a data which they can share to the cloud and some data which they cannot share to the public or to the cloud. So from this perspective, again, the strategy, they have to go either for the cloud or the hybrid model. And then the second thing is they have to consider the data protection, right? What are the data protection law they should follow from the country or from the regulator perspective. The third thing they have to consider when they're going for investment, that what type of workforce they have, or for example, data engineer, the resources they need to get from the market, and from operational perspective, what cost they have to put there. So they have to consider the ROI there, and in the end, most important thing is the user experience or the guest experience. So it should be reflected in the end, the solution to the guest experience enhancement.
Yeah. Excellent, thank you. Ankur, I wanted to ask regarding product design and also digital transformations. What AI-driven design innovations specifically do you see on the horizon for hospitality?
Thanks, Nicolas. First, hi everyone. Pleasure to be here. So look, let's break down product to understand the question, right? There's what you said, what is on the horizon for hospitality?
Design specifically.
Design specifically
yeah.
From an AI standpoint,
yeah.
right? So look, I think in the hospitality world, there's 3 trends that are happening broadly when you think about design. One is the overall end-to-end experience itself, right? And there's a lot of new models where digital is playing a role, whether it goes from the check-in experience all the way to the in-room experience, to the room service, to the communication. There's a lot of design work going on there, right? Then there's a second element of how do you use predictive revenue management. There's a big product design element going on there, right? How do you actually predict and design better? And the third is just the physical design, which is where FF&E and the in-room feel and look come, right? And I think there again, tremendous amount of advancements are being made, right? We're involved in that space as well, right? One of the use cases there that we're seeing is how do you actually make sure that not only do you design using AI, but how do you also make sure it meets the ROI and it actually, it meets the end purpose.
Yes.
And the ADR actually does support, because you can't just have a beautiful looking room if it doesn't sell, then the ROI purpose is defeated. So I think there's a lot of AI being applied in all of these aspects that are helping.
So you mentioned predictability or prediction. So, following the design, let's say the initial design process for a new sort of venture, are you able to test with AI how well the design would be received? Is that part of it as well?
So there's 2 sides of it, right? I think there's tremendous amount of historic data which says what is the kind of the RevPAR, what is the kind of ADR that a geography supports, right? And if you pair that data with the amount of money being invested, you can model that. Yes, so there's a lot of modeling and that capability exists, right? Then there's a second piece of modeling where you can actually model what does it look like with different investment options, where you can then say, if I were to look at A, B, C option, and then model what the look looks like in terms of the ADR support. So yeah, it's not perfect, but there's a good amount of data that you can triangulate to get there.
I mean, it's not perfect now, but again, radical changes every few months, new iterations, it eventually becomes perfect, right? So, I mean, what does perfection look like according to you in this particular use case? What does perfection look like to you?
So look, I think the ideal use case that I think the final product can, ideally get towards is, can you have a seamless experience where you say feasibility all the way to experience? You can do it at the ROI. So the metric that you're really optimizing for is IRR or ROI, but along the way, at every single point, you're doing digital experiences and investments that are linked to the ROI.
Ahmed, I wanted to ask, regarding the integration of AI, it can be very complex and costly. So what strategies do you suggest that investors apply to mitigate risks associated with AI technology implementation?
Right, yep. So when we talk about the integration, so integration is always complex, especially when you have a system like kind of AI, the vast system. So first of all, we need to understand as an investor that in which area we want to invest, in which area we want to integrate this AI. So let's say from the guest perspective, the guest experience enhancement perspective, that we want to develop the AI system there. So let's talk about the seamless guest onboarding. Let's say that if the guest is coming through by air and he's landing to the airport, how we can make sure that he is properly welcome there, and he's able to integrate or connect with the network. And when he's coming to the hotel, he's getting automated check-in, and he's getting all these facilities already personalized for him. So I think this is one of the factors we have to realize as investor, that when we are going to invest this kind of projects, AI projects, then which are priority number one for us. So for the guest perspective, then obviously we need to look into the network infrastructure, right? We need to understand the current staff capabilities. We need to understand that what are the budget options available, and then we can start from there.
Excellent. Now, Ankur, let's talk a bit about the bottom line. So what are some case studies that you've seen actually being applied in hospitality or its surrounding fields that were effectively able to translate directly into enhanced profitability?
Using AI?
Yes.
So I'll talk about two use cases, right? I think one is a specific use case where, so just historically, right? You have a designer would design to aesthetics, right? And then you would kind of go and price it and try to value engineer and bring things back, right? I think taking a step back and saying, what if the input was not just aesthetics? The input was IRR. The input was ROI.
Reverse engineer.
Reverse engineer the budget. Because if the market for a 3-star supports X dollars per night, right? Why would you invest so much more on call it the interiors, the FF&E, that would never recoup the ROI, right? So that's a use case. We've actually implemented that, not in the hotel sector yet in the US, but we've actually implemented that in the vacation rental sector, right? So we've had clients in the vacation rental segment, right? Where we've actually gone in and we've actually studied the ADR, and we've actually said, you shouldn't be spending $30,000 for this 1-bedroom apartment FF&E, because really you will not be able to get the hurdle rate met. Instead, what you should be spending is more like maybe a 10, 12,000, because that is kind of where the ADR is met. So that's one use case, right? The other one that we've also seen work extremely practically in a very bottom line fashion is the whole element of, do you actually buy the furniture, or do you actually lease the furniture?
All right.
Right? So think about this, right? A lot of the times, you're planning something with a certain life, right? And it's almost always that there is a one buying model, which is it has to be brand new, it has to be this, and it has to be done in a certain way, and it actually doesn't support
Yep.
the economics sometimes.
Mm.
But you instead, if you take a different model and you say, look, what if the furniture was actually circular,
Yep.
there was an end of life value, and you actually leased it, the ROI sometimes works much better
Yep.
versus just buying.
Yeah, it's an interesting point because, you know, in some ways, what you're describing is you're taking a situation and you're coming up with the solution to the problem that hasn't necessarily been a factor in the first place when you say leased versus acquiring, right? But eventually, don't you think we're going to have this computational power and the large language model to support automated decision making that doesn't require such a human problem solving and an input? Or would that be the end of us?
No, already happening. So look, I mean, let's take a different industry, okay? Let's take the car industry for a second. Leave the hotel aside for a second. Let's talk about cars. In the car industry, you almost always, when you lease a car, you almost always set the price based on residual value, right? Because there's a resale value data available.
Correct.
That is what is happening in the hospitality world now. I think it's a lack of data. But as more and more models are coming into play, I think these models are getting codified, right? And not in very far future, I think engines like what we're building, and we know a few other data systems that we're working with, where your designer will not be allowed to spend infinite amount of money on a room because the ROI just doesn't make sense. And these models will actually tell you and will actually predict the budgeting for you.
And you would be able to trust them much more than any human you've relied on previously.
That's right.
Yeah, there we
That's
go.
Right.
That's the kicker. Ahmed, now, can you talk to us about specific AI tools that have shown to reduce operational costs or enhance revenue generation in a hospitality setting?
Okay, yeah. So we have multiple use cases in this field. Number one, we can say the chatbots, right? So the chatbots, if they are well trained and well programmed and they have the right models, so they can take most of the operational recurring inquiries, right? And they can redirect, they can enhance actually the user or the guest experience. And if you see from the design perspective in the hospitality environment, the chatbot's position is acting as a face of the hospitality services, right? So if it is designed it well and it is programmed well and it has the right module, then it can serve like a 60 to 70% inquiries for the guest. And if you see the record or the score coming from the user in the feedbacks, then chatbot is one of the things which has enhanced overall user experience.
Excellent.
So I think this is one of the very important thing. And second thing is that when we talk about user experience and the chatbots, the backend technology, they are well developed now. They have a lot of models available. And same time, the AI role is that we can design these chatbots to make sure that they're acquiring the cultural norms.
Yes.
They are addressing the cultural needs. They are addressing the personalized needs of the guest. Though the actual person sometimes he cannot do that thing. So I think this is one of the very important use case in the hospital.
Very good. No, apart from that, any other tools that you have recently surfaced that you think are worthy of mentioning?
So yeah, obviously, so I'm coming from the HP Aruba, so as a network we understand there is a lot of tapping points in the hospitality environment where we can get a lot of useful data about the user. So location-based services, we can provide the location-based services. For example, we can enhance the in-room experience. For example, the energy system management there. So these are the use cases, regular use cases where we are developing our technologies. For example, as a smart switching system, right? So which will provide the power according to the person or the guest if it is available in the room. Otherwise, it will go to the sleep mode. So there is a lot of use cases we have developed around the AI.
Excellent. Very exciting. Ankur, I wanted to ask specifically about making decisions, specifically in asset management and in valuations. I imagine a platform or an interface where the entire context of the asset or the land, etc., is effectively plugged in, and you get an output. Now, what are your views on this particular domain? How do you think investors should be making their decisions and should be remaining ahead of the curve using AI?
So, first, I'm not an expert on the real estate valuation, but I'll tell you what I know from what I've seen, right? My understanding is there's a lot of data that is now available that you can simply input, right? I mean, just historic data, comparable, condition of the asset, a lot of those things can go in, right? And it kind of gives you a little bit of the decision based on whether, you know, what value of the asset is real, and a lot of that is being applied. But I think where the biggest thing that I think people are missing is the whole element of predictability. That is, I think now there are better tools that are allowing you to predict your outcomes. Because what happens is, let's say, when you think about one brand, I think what most of these models are lacking is how many other hotels of comparable brands are also being launched in the same zip code. Like how much competition will be there. So I think a lot of these things are unknown, and there's a little bit of that prediction that is also getting improved. But I think that's the did I answer your question?
Yes. Yeah, okay. I mean, effectively, we're reducing the margin of error, and you know, there's no crystal ball, but there might be a digital crystal ball for all we know, right? And a digital crystal ball that might have all of game theory figured out in the hospitality industry, and understanding the reactions of each competitor to one another. If it's interconnected, I mean, might be a dystopian future, I don't know, but if the ability to base your decisions on an interface or on a large language model which has this interconnected awareness of each of the players' movements, then, you know, are we heading for a perfect market in that sense, if you see what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Obviously, when we talk about the large language module, the sentiment which you're going to get it out of it, it can solve a lot of issues, right? For example, as a guest, as a staff, or as an investor. So I think it has its own value. And if I see from the future perspective, we can see the generation, we call it the special generation or some generation, which is tech savvy actually. And they have their own demands and they have their own requirement. They are looking for AR kind of experience when they are going to different destination, right?
Yes.
And I think from their perspective, these AI by design, it is for their requirement, right? For the next generation traveler requirement. So this is one of the things, as an investor, they should consider that if you are deploying the AI model or AI technology or platform now, actually they are serving the future need, or they are getting ready for the future travelers.
Excellent. Now, Ahmed, regarding best practices for integrating AI into existing IT infrastructures, what would you say are such best practices?
Yeah. So I think in hospitality, the IT infrastructure is very important, especially when we talk about the guest perspective. Now, when we see that AI there, so AI is actually all the data. It has the engine, it has to process the data. Now, another important thing, the quality of data. So if you have a legacy system which is not able to get the correct data, which is not able to provide the right tapping information, then obviously we need to upgrade the IT infrastructure first place, right? And once we are doing this process, then we have to see which are important steps, right? The second thing is in this process, the security, right? So when we consider the AI and the IT infrastructure, then the security, the cyber security becomes very important. The national laws are there, there's the international laws are there. So we have to make sure that whatever AI platform or whatever system we are acquiring for hospitality management system, our current infrastructure, and as well as our cyber security system is ready for it. Or otherwise we should invest first there, and then we can go and develop the AI models.
Yeah, it's important to get the sequence right, and
exactly.
Always keeping the finger on the pulse, understanding how these things are evolving, how can I integrate more easily. And integration itself, it can be quite lengthy as well, right? So like shortening that time frame, how does one achieve that?
Exactly. I will give a very simple example. Yeah. It is not directly related to AI, but obviously it will give the... So for example, in the hospitality, the Wi-Fi is very important, right? Now, the most of the hospitality we see the generation 5 Wi-Fi networks.
Yes.
Now we are talking about the generation 7 or Wi-Fi 7, which is recently released, or Wi-Fi 6E. So the technology point of view, there's a huge difference between Wi-Fi 6E and the previous generation. And the same way, when we see the difference, which means that the one access point on one Wi-Fi box can act not only as an access point, it can be a very rich and quality tapping point, which can provide the IoT device information, which can provide the user information, which can enable user to communicate with the whole environment, right? So the point is that question, are we going to implement or design or change the whole IT infrastructure? No. You can start from the access layer, or the layer which is actually impacting the end user experience. And also it is giving you the quality data, which will help you to train your AI better models. So I think there should be a strategy, and from this perspective, they have to go with the consultants or the vendor who are specialized in this market to take the decisions.
Excellent. Right. Yeah, we're seeing a lot of value nowadays in private 5G networks, which for the audience, just to explain, it's basically a private network. It's localized, it's centralized, and it uses 5G technology to have a secure, high-speed, low-latency wireless telecommunication within a specific area. So if you imagine the hotel itself would have its own 5G private network, and connectivity is seamless and integrated. So it's essentially an enabler of Internet of Things.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
I will actually try to explain it in another way, that, for example, if you are going to another country and you are carrying your mobile phone, and you have a roaming package, so any country you roam around, you get automatic connectivity to the operator. Same way, we are bringing the similar functionality within the enterprise, within the hospitality, right? So because of it, user will be able to get the AR or VR kind of functionalities. They will be able to manage the IoT system, smart door lock system within the properties. Or if you have an outdoor environment, the hospitality, they can use this similar functionality. And actually, the future generation of the access points are coming, which will have a built-in 5G radios, which means essentially that you're going to have the same, your enterprise or hospitality network is also providing the private 5G solution. Yeah. And Saudi Arabia is one of the countries who is moving very fast in this direction.
Yeah. There's so many greenfield projects, everything coming online anew. You're able to start fresh with integrated tech from the beginning. So that's a very nice opportunity. Ankur, my last question to you. So as an entrepreneur, what advice would you give to hospitality professionals looking to start integrating AI into their business models?
So two pieces of advice, right? I think AI is very powerful. It's also very misunderstood. I think AI is not going to replace your people. AI is only going to help your people. So I think there's a little bit of, I think, it's early. There are use cases. It's not advanced to the extent where it can replace people. Yep. But I think there are places where you can implement this in very small improvements in a very, very holistic way, right? I mean, all the way from improving guest information using AI, all the way to improving customer service, improving just simple prediction of revenue. There's lots of small tools, I think, so that's one, right? Yeah. The second one is, I think, there are bigger bets on AI that I think requires data, requires users to kind of try, right? I think there's a lot of hospitality tech being built using AI, especially from where I come in Silicon Valley. I think there's a whole set of entrepreneurs that have recognized that hospitality is one of the sectors where technology has not made its way and AI has not made its way to the way it can. And I think there's a lot of bigger problems that can be solved using AI. So I think, but it's important that we think about them. This thing that we talked about, for example, can you actually have AI start helping you tie this to ROI, where when you're doing design and you're looking at investment, there's a big part of investment is backed by data using AI models, right? I think, so there's a little bit of that. I think it'll require a couple of bold steps to be taken. And I think Saudi Arabia is known for bold steps, right? So I'd urge the hotel owners here to look at what AI can actually do for some of the early feasibility or some of the projects that are being done.
Don't hesitate to just jump into it, it's the right opportunity to do so. Ankur, Ahmed, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
A hand for our panelists. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nicolas. Pleasure being here.
Thank you.